Did you have any thoughts on Donald Trump saying that he actually didn't like his opponents, hated his opponents, and didn't wish them well? That struck as an odd note at a memorial service.
Well, it's him. He was describing himself. At least he was truthful, right? I don't know. I feel it was badly timed. I think he was trying to make a joke about how Charlie Kirk wasn't like that. You try to find something funny at a funeral. But I think that was the absolute truth about himself. That's how he feels about people. He really does. The thing is, he does move on from, and then becomes friends with people he hates, or he has friends that then he hates, and then they're friends again.
Like Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, right. Or Elon Musk, or whoever it happens to be. And so that's his MO. But I mean, it's completely on brand with him. Hate works for this man, just the way hope worked for Obama, right? And so he's really leaning into what works for him, which is
great
cruelty.
Comparison, hope versus hate. Well, look, there's so much going on that I want to talk to you about, and I think of you as someone who has, very thought out opinions on all sorts of things. Where are we on the TikTok deal, which would have got more attention on Friday had it not been for the build-up to Arizona? So can you fill us in on the details and what you think may happen and why it's of significance?
Well, on Pivot, we predicted the entire thing. It's going to Larry Ellison. He had already been involved in the first version of this effort by Trump to somehow protect Americans from China. But that's not at all what's happening here. It's a big payoff for his friends and people who have supported him, principal being Larry Ellison. Now, Oracle's fully able to handle something like this from a technical point of view, from a data point of view. But he's rewarding his friends, whether it's Mark Andreessen, he was dangling it to the Murdochs. It's all sort of a gimme to bring it in. The question is, is this really separate? I don't know. There's very little detail on what Congress has actually said has to happen, which is a separate thing. But it seems like the Chinese are in there for 20%. And what does that mean? Where's the algorithm? What's the product going to be? There's very little detail, except that there's going to be, it's being put in the hands of his friends, people who have supported him, whether it's Andreessen or Ellison. We'll see the list. Well, maybe not. We won't see the list. But the question is whether the product declines in some way, and if those protections that Congress was so very worried about are actually in place. I would doubt it in terms of what they're doing, but we'll find out. We will find out. China is probably holding out for a better tariff deal, I suppose, but it doesn't seem like they're giving up much here. And I know when it first happened, Mark Cuban told me it's useless without the algorithm. It's not a product. You're buying a brand. And so that's an issue. And then, a bunch of old men explaining TikTok to us. I'm not so sure I want this gang of people in charge. Mark Andreessen's such a hip-hop happening guy. Give me a break.
Well, he's got a hip-hop hairstyle, I suppose.
I guess.
In as much as that is a thing. And who gets to keep the data?
I don't know. I mean, presumably it's your data. But I don't know. The Chinese already have some of the data. I don't know how they gate it. I guess they keep it in the United States. But, there's been lots of reports that it moves over there. We're never going to see this algorithm, what it really is. And so that's the issue. We'll never know now, because Donald Trump just wants to make a deal, what the Chinese did. I'd like to know, if we had, they're never going to give us control of the algorithm because they don't want us to know what they did. And so we'll never know, and we'll see. And then if they're not using the Chinese algorithm, which you've based your whole life on TikTok, it might not be as good for you, right? I find, Instagram and Threads really pushing ahead. Well, that's a different privacy issue, but in general, I think they're really growing quite strongly. And I hate to recommend them, but I would use Threads and Instagram over TikTok in any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Well, and also the reason to use TikTok, the reason to use Threads and Instagram is that I guess it's better that it's owned by an American company than a Chinese company.
Yes, sir.
Does it make any difference if China sells in theory, TikTok to America at this point, because they've been inside American culture for as long as they have, 4 or 5 years at this point?
I don't know who's running the algorithm. Again, this is the unknowns are so massive here, and it certainly flies in the face of what Congress was trying to do. I mean, it was passed by both houses of Congress, and it was signed by President Biden. So it's just not doing what it said it was doing, which was protect our citizens from both surveillance. Less so, I think, is an issue than propaganda. And the question is, who is weighting the propaganda on this stuff? Trump was against it before he was for it, which is because it shifted the algorithm in his favor, probably on purpose. So his campaign people went to him and said, "Hey, we like TikTok. And that, by the way, one of your biggest funders likes TikTok as an owner, Jeff Yass.
Yeah. And I think it was Charlie Kirk and Barron that went to Donald Trump and said, actually, TikTok's a good thing for you. You shouldn't be trying to ban it.
Sure.
And I think his first instinct to try and ban it was probably the correct one, which is we don't want foreign adversaries meddling around in social media in our country.
Right. We're not allowed to go over there and do it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing, if like we used at the time, man, I wrote a piece 7-8 years ago saying, I love TikTok. I use it on a burner phone. And I got all kinds of flack for that.
Right.
Like it was a New York Times column and everyone was like, how dare you insult the Chinese? I'm like, I'm sorry. It's the Chinese Communist Party who wants to dominate the world. I feel like they shouldn't, we don't have asynchronous ability to influence its culture at all.
Right. There's no reciprocity. Google's not allowed in China.
Well, they left China, to be fair. But,
okay, they left
because of spying, because these are pernicious stealer of IP and pernicious surveillance. And, it's one thing, I don't want to stack rank surveillance. It's one thing for Mark Zuckerberg wanting to sell us more crap or manipulate us in some way. And it's another thing for the Chinese Communist Party to do so.
Right.
So I suppose if I have to pick, which I don't like the choice.
No, I love the idea of stack ranking security and surveillance. It's a brilliant term.
They're surveilling us so they can sell us shit, and he can do more MMA fighting, I guess.
Right, and some of the shit they sell us, I quite like. Actually, I'm debating about whether or not to buy a thing that keeps coming up on Instagram, which is a massager for your lymph nodes.
Instagram has great ads. Always has.
Yeah, and I'm like, how do you know I need one of those? Brilliant, I do need it.
I think Instagram and ads, that's a really interesting case study in terms of quality. I mean, I think it's a quality product. There's lots of hair all over this stuff, whether it's hate or surveillance or whatever. But it was always a good product when he bought it. And it was a wonderful product when I was there when it started, when it had 7 people. And they've made it into he's very good at that, and I have to give kudos to them for both that and Threads. So people like Twitter better, but I don't. I like Threads, and I like Blue Sky. I like both of them. I like competition, so I'm.
And it's hard to see who benefits more from a divided America than the Chinese.
Right.
Which is which is my anxiety about TikTok.
We're such dummies. They're probably laughing their asses off.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're bent double. I'm sure they're in the fetal position laughing on the floor, as are the Russians.
I don't feel they have a lot of respect for us as a nation.
Well, it'd be fascinating to see how the deal gets done. So you've been very forthright about Bob Iger's decision to suspend indefinitely Jimmy Kimmel's show. There's been talk over the weekend that maybe Jimmy Kimmel comes back in some form. Do you think that's likely?
So awkward. This was already a show, all these shows, not just Jimmy Kimmel's. I think he's very talented and everything else. All these shows, as you know, I talk about these are declining audiences. And oddly enough, Hacks had sort of presaged this idea of the economic challenges. Let's start with those.
Right. And the storyline. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost perfect in that last speech she gave when they tried to get her to fire the character Hannah Einbender plays. These companies are struggling with late night because of the costs. And that's I know everyone was like, oh, they cut him because of Trump. I'm like, they probably also cut him because of costs, because they kept the South Park people, which was doing well, right? So if you make audience, and make money for them, they'll keep you. That's always been my point of view, is that if you make money for people, they'll put up with a lot.
Right, and people do watch. I mean, the audience has died, certainly late night, but they do watch it on YouTube. And they watch it for free.
Clips, yes, they watch on clips, but that's not monetizable as much as the old system. And so,
right, exactly.
There was a need to cut costs. There was a declining audience. Much of the popularity of it is on clips, which is hard to monetize, right? And so, you have that problem, period. Like, what do you do about these shows, and how do you? But the first thing for Colbert you could have done is, let's see if we can cut costs and put you on streaming and blankety blank. There was never that. There was never, it's, oh, we have to cut you. Like, there, without any kind of discussion about how to make it a much more economically viable thing. So that gives me pause, like, oh, they did it because Trump, like that. So that was pretty obvious to me. And she wanted, they wanted that deal done, et cetera, et cetera. I think, and this was pre the Ellisons even, this was Sherry Redstone, who really has turned out to be, well, I'm not surprised. Anyway.
Well, and I wonder if you've heard this too, but a few people had said to me, well, of course David Ellison wants Stephen Colbert to be fired before the deal because he doesn't want to be the person to fire Stephen Colbert.
Yes, that's correct. He got lucky. He got lucky in that regard. And it just, the timing was good for him. I don't know what they would have done. They probably, I suspect Bob Iger was looking at the numbers and thinking, we got to do something about late night. This isn't working for us. But to do it in this way, right when Brandon Carr is acting like a ridiculous, cartoon mobster, what a terrible public official he is. It looks so linked. It's like so bright line, and especially after paying the $16 million over the George Stephanopoulos problem they had. Now, in that case, I was not quite as critical because I thought, I bet there's emails. I bet there's texts. Mm-hmm. I think they would not have lost, but it would have been very embarrassing. That's my guess. I don't know, although Sherry Redstone gave in and they didn't do anything.